peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
I want to begin by first and foremost thanking the African Union and all the African nations for their support and their belief in Kenya being able to advocate the African cause, the cause of Pan-Africanism, the cause of peace, the cause of global solidarity, the call to multilateralism. Kenya's story is one that believes and trusts that together we are stronger. One that believes that through democracy, through respect for human life, and through unity, more can be achieved than individually. We thank the African continent for supporting us in our bid. And we thank all our friends across the world who have joined us and supported us. Today is a day for me personally, on my own behalf and on behalf of the government and the people of Kenya, to assure you that a vote for Kenya is a vote for peace. A vote for Kenya is a vote for global solidarity. A vote for Kenya is a vote for multilateralism. A vote for Kenya is that even the smallest voice shall be heard as the largest and most powerful voice. Let's work together. Let's build global harmony. Let's move forward in our march for peace. Let's move forward in our march for the sustainable use of the resources that our continent, our globe, is endowed with. And let's move forward and ensure that no one is left behind.
Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Africa. Wherever you are in the world, thank you very much for watching Punchline Africa. Diplomatic Leaks comes next. Thank you very much. Our viewers, wherever you are in the world, thank you very much. We've just finished a program on Kenya, the events in Kenya, what is taking place in Kenya, changes in the Parliament of Kenya to deliver the legacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Yes, now we move to the international scene of Pan-Africanism and Africa and the region as a whole. As you know, we plan these programs that affect the people of Kenya, affect the people of the region, that's East Africa, and above all, affect Africa and the world. That's why we go Kenya first. Second, regional. Third, the world and the diaspora. Therefore, those are our programs. Simple. Those who are seeking too many answers of why we lined those programs in that way, get it in your heads today. That's what we do. Kenya first, regional politics, then the diaspora, and the world. The global market, where you bring Mr. Trump, where you bring the diaspora in the Caribbean, the diaspora in Europe, the diaspora in South Africa. That's why you see Miriam doing it every last hour of our show. So that is the content. Anybody who tries to say he has a content, easy, bring it. Don't tell us you have content when you don't have. That's the content that matters to the people of the region. You can't live alone. Kenya first, region second, Africa next, and the world. That's how we have set up this television station. And those who want to listen, can listen. And that's how it will move. And it has to move that way. We encourage numbers from the people of Kenya to see soon our media, our social media platforms will be enhanced. We want you to pick up Zoom, Uber, anything. Pick Zoom. Join us. Ask us. We shall be publishing the ID number every morning for you to join us to have a discussion. Call with your material. Let's converse. The medium will take it. Whether you are in Nakuru, in Kakamega, in Mombasa, in Malindi, you will have the ID. The ID number for our Zoom, so you can join us permanently. Let's talk. Don't fear. She will moderate. Let the works work. Diplomatic leaks comes with South Sudan this afternoon. This morning, what pains us most is South Sudan. The peace process has just been concluded. COVID-19 comes in to strike a bit of their leadership. The soldiers are in containment in the camps. The soldiers are assembled. The DDR process is to begin. And that DDR process, as it was beginning, COVID-19 strikes the Minister of Defense, strikes the Deputy President, Vice President, and the other Vice Presidents. The country starts to be paralyzed. Soldiers are in the camps. What hits South Sudan most is the money. They don't have the money. And I want to be very frank to the world today that a country without money cannot sustain peace. If the world wants peace, they are ginning about peace returning to South Sudan. We want them to help South Sudan by giving them money, resources, to hold the peace, the fragile peace. Why South Sudan? We have interest. Kenya has interest. One of their distinct sons is attached to the peace process. Major General Njoroge is in there. And several other troops of Kenya are in there. Peacekeepers. Why Sudan? Ugandans, IGAD are all in there. It's a trading pattern. It's a gateway to the north as we flow from River Nile in Uganda towards the Mediterranean Sea. It is part of the cradle of Africa. The cradle of the black humanity is in South Sudan. Why South Sudan? Why do we need a peaceful South Sudan? We need it because it has value for the rest of East and the Central African countries. Over to you in the studio, Those are my opening remarks.
Right.
South Sudan needs money. South Sudan needs discipline. South Sudan needs to be forgiven. I have seen a letter by the African Union demanding $9 million from South Sudan. Will you get it from the stone? This country has been under war. It has been under war. It's still under war. There are still people fighting. We shall cross over to our correspondent. Our correspondent, Marwal, if he's there, he's watching, he can come in by phone to tell us what happened to this money. Why were you not remitting this money? Why was the government of Mr. Salva Kiir not paying the African Union the money? Had the questions here. Maybe I will ask them. Some of us will attempt to answer for them. But at the moment, thank you, ma'am. They need money.
All right. Thank you, Doctor, for that introduction, and a very good morning to all our viewers, wherever you're watching us from. Indeed, South Sudan needs money, but also South Sudan has other things. South Sudan must put its house in order. South Sudan leadership must show a will to, want to bring the country together. South Sudan must go back to the drawing board and find out where did the rain started beating the country since it got its independence about over in 2011. These are questions that must be, answered, because right now, even the money and the donor money that has been given to South Sudan, it cannot be accounted for, very straightforwardly, because of the lack of structures in place to ensure that even some of this money are used properly. Corruption. South Sudan is the second most corrupt country in the world after Somalia. So there's a lot there. And yes, indeed, Doctor, South Sudan needs help. There's no doubt about that. South Sudan right now runs through the mercy of donors there, the monies that are coming in there from donor funding and all that. So it is important for the rest of the world to continue helping South Sudan. But Doctor, there are a lot of things that are happening in that country that needs to be addressed. You can't just pour your money, as it has been happening there in South Sudan. As a couple of weeks ago, we saw an assistant minister come out and resign, citing the lack of willingness by the leadership there of South Sudan to implement the peace deal, which is very paramount if South Sudan was to move forward, was to stabilize, was to realize a real peace where its citizens will move from the refugee camps and go back to their homes, go back to their villages, go back to rebuilding their lives. As you speak right now, the refugee camps, even in South Sudan itself, continues to swell with people because of the insecurities that have been erupting every now and then in the couple of months ago. So these are issues that has to be addressed. And of course, the world's youngest nation has been mired in instability and conflict for nearly all the 80 years since it gained independence from Sudan. South Sudan's latest peace deal will likely not stop the country's bloody conflict. This is according to numerous experts who have weighed in the fragile peace in the country. Questions have been raised about the seriousness of the international community's effort to end a brutal cycle of violence in the East African nation. Now, most of these observers say that the deal backs effectively the same power-sharing formula to end the country's civil war that has repeatedly failed before, which they say highlights South Sudan's tragic arc from an international success story to a chronic diplomatic catastrophe. So, Doctor, they keep relying on this, strategy, on this deal that they had, formula that they had since before, and this formula has refused to work. So should they change? Because, Doctor, you've been very consistent in saying that the foundations of this deal was faulty from before, and these are what the rest of the experts are saying. According to the situation there in South Sudan, the power-sharing formula, they're saying, has been wrong from the start, and perhaps it is time for them to reevaluate for South Sudan to realize peace. I don't know what you will say to that.
First of all, Miriam, thank you very much for reminding me and saying I've been consistent on the question of a bad peace process. From day one, the South Sudan peace process was wrongly built on a platform that could actually disintegrate the same values that IGAD and other countries are putting. You can't build a peace process based of lack of accountability. There was the question of accountability, which should have begun first. We needed answers as to why over 300,000 people died. We seem to have avoided that and gone in for a political structure. And once you avoid the bad apples and you separate them, but you don't crush them, the conflict resolution expert like me will tell you these apples come back to haunt you. They will come to mix themselves in the good apples that when you take them for factory to produce juice, you will spoil them. Mm-hmm. I have done a literally an explanation that as you are rolling your apples on the machine, the manager says, stop the machine. This is bad apple. You know, juice will be discarded. Nobody wants to touch apples. In South Sudan, and this process is sort out accountability first, before you come to us to sort out political leadership. Mm-hmm. But the Sudan issue did not sort out the basics of what the people in Jongole, in the other states of Sudan wanted. We sought out from the top, but the basics of what those guys in Jongole said, this was not sorted out. The human rights abuses, the slaughter of 300,000 over people who have perished. There are Sudanese who are looking around to find their relatives. They have no recourse. Where do they go? Whom do they talk to? Is there nobody who is going to be accountable for this? If it is alternative mechanisms, let's put them out openly, that the Sudanese, the South Sudanese will actually forgive each other. Have we done the forgiveness? Have we done the forgiveness? Have we done the truth and the reconciliation? Where is it? Where is it? My students watching this program, those who are in the university and at home, take it from me. If you don't do accountability, forget about a permanent peace. Because accountability will come back to haunt you.
All right there.
Accountability will haunt you. Mm-hmm. And it will haunt you very badly. So for me, I would prefer that, yes, this process is turning. We must encourage and help them by calling on the international community to bring the money. Mm-hmm. This state has oil, and the oil is in the ground. It's not on the top. It is not yet a product. It's being dug. And the way it is dug, there is war. So let's help them first. Let the European Union bring in money. Let America pump in money. Let China, with its huge money surplus that it uses to bully us in Africa, bring it and pump it in. Pump the money in Sudan. Give the government of Sudan money. They cannot organize peace without money. Jamen, let's please, there's not, I think we are even wasting our saliva of a thing which is straightforward. South Sudan is at the brink of bankruptcy. It's a bankruptcy. It's a bankrupt state without cash. How will they hold the peace process? How will they feed the soldiers? How will they fly to those assembly points? How will they calculate peace among the tribes? How will they look after the facilities of assembly? I'm asking serious questions here. Anybody who dares to answer me, answer me and tell them they have the money hidden somewhere. Where? Salva Kiir told you that there's no money. The country needs help. Why are we punishing them more? Even sending them a note of 24 million to pay. Where would they get it? You want them to kill Sudanese to give South Sudanese to give you money? Watu wana pesa. Hakuna pesa. Give them money. Over to you, Miriam.
All right, and speaking about money, when the African Union has sanctioned South Sudan over standing contributions to the continental body, South Sudan, which succeeded from Sudan on the 9th of July 2011, joined the African Union on 27th July 2011, becoming the 54th member. As part of the member contributions to the continent, a country is expected to annually pay its membership fees now. But according to the South Sudan's ambassador to Ethiopia, Petia Morgan, the country has not paid its contributions amounting to just about $9 million, about 9.19 million US dollars to the AU budget and peace funds for the last 3 years. The outstanding arrears have now led to the sanctioning of the country on the 16th June by the African Union, and in a letter addressed to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Morgan described as embarrassing and dramatic when South Sudanese diplomats were barred from attending AU meeting 4 days ago. Quite embarrassing, I can imagine. And also, the country is also yet to clear its arrears to the East African community, to which it owes about 24 million US dollars. I don't know where South Sudan is going to get this money. It appears it is going to be sanctioned almost in every important body. The AU has sanctioned it, and now East African community. Who will be next? The United Nations, as they sanctioned Venezuela.
I don't think even the United States of America is meeting Venezuelan President Jacob Chavez. Maduro. Trump has just announced this morning or last night that he is going to meet Maduro. So why are we punishing South Sudan? It doesn't have the money. Are you going to kill them to have the money? AU is not punishing Djibouti for violating very serious rule of collective responsibility. Why do you rush to Sudan, which you know was under war? You see, Miriam, nikwambie kitu moja. There is somebody who wants to take Salva Kiir and Riek Machar to an international tribunal. I told you this, that there was a country that was waiting with international tribunal. And do you know how they start? Do you know how they start? They start with that. They start with that. Now, why are they asking for the money? They're asking for money, Miriam, because they are going to bring in corruption charges. They want George Clooney and Clooney and Pendergast report to be effective, to be to be used You haven't using the trick of internationalism. International intelligence is very clear. They have now used, they are using the George Clooney and the Pedicus report. If Sudan, South Sudan comes up to say, we don't have the money, they are going to ask them, where did it go? Then they say, oh, we were at war. No, but what about the money you were banking in Switzerland? That's how the regime change begins.
And speaking of which, Doctor, you know, the latest report by the same individuals, George Pedegast, made a very damning, revelation there about the leading generals there in South Sudan who have amassed a lot of wealth that they cannot explain where it has come from, and it was presented to the United Nations there. So there is a lot of sense, Doctor, in what you're saying this morning. I see Daniel Wasonga, you have joined us. A very good morning to you.
Yes, good morning, Miriam Ogutu, Dr. Matsang, and our esteemed viewers in Kenya, Africa, and the globe at large.
All right, so we are looking at South Sudan, the prospect of a permanent peace there in Sudan, and is the peace holding? And we've been talking about Sudan, and right now we are just at the point where AU sanctioned Sudan because Sudan owes about South Sudan. It owes about $9 million US dollar, an outstanding contribution to the continental body, and also Sudan owes the East Africa community about $24 million. I don't know where these bodies expect South Sudan to get the money from. It can't even feed its own people.
Yes, I think South Sudan is a very, very serious case. And I've heard Dr. Matsanga talking about the issues and how they can be resolved. And of course, Dr. Matsanga has been discussing about South Sudan for quite some time. And I believe he has a better understanding on the issues that are affecting the country. But maybe just to echo whatever you said also, before we have peace in South Sudan, we have to have truth. And before truth, we have to have justice. And it's only after we have truth and justice that we can have a reconciliation for the people between the people of South Sudan and have a long-lasting peace. Of course, the deep-rooted atrocities that have been ongoing there, the killings and the rape and the displacements, all of those have to be addressed, and the system of South Sudanese leadership has to be cleaned, and the country be able to start on a very, very clean slate. And of course, you cannot expect that all these atrocities that have been committed recently and in the past to be overridden for the sake of just having maybe mediating a peace process. So these are issues that have to be addressed before we can even talk about now bringing this leadership together. Let those ones who have been accused of atrocities be brought to book, and let them close books accounts with the corridors of justice in South Sudan. I think I echo what Dr. Matsanga said, and I hold the same opinion.
All right, thank you there. Thank you so much, Daniel. So even as we, appeal for more help for South Sudan there, obviously the country needs every help it can get from every good-willing, country and organization across the world. But there are some things that have been happening in that country that really might jeopardize any kind of help that donors or a country like United States or even any World Bank or IMF would want to give to South Sudan, because recently UNICEF has given some very worrying statistics about children who are still part of the training of the unified forces there in South Sudan, and children as young as 15 to 17 years old were identified in one of the training centers of the unified forces in the capital. Doctor, why are we still having, and I had this conversation last week, I don't know, I was close to getting very annoyed. Why is South Sudan, under the leadership of President Salva Kiir and Riek Machar, why do we still have child soldiers training as part of unified forces? I cannot even wrap my mind around that.
First of all, the question of child soldiers did not start in South Sudan. Mm-hmm. It started in many other countries across the globe. It has and it continues to be a very serious war crime to use children who are not above age to be in the army. But conditions at times change from one country to the other. For example, in Uganda, President Museveni used children long time ago. They have grown up, they are now soldiers. 34 years ago, they were called Kadogos. The crime against humanity is committed once you try a war crime using children and inscripting. It is under this ICC statute. Mm-hmm. Whatever you are talking now, you bring me back to the real thing, which Miriam again you see, I always tell you. You cannot operate about the children. You cannot complain about the children without accountability.
Absolutely.
And that's what I told you, that the South Sudan peace process was wrong, was done on a wrong premises of peace. And I can write pages and pages. You cannot do now, why are you now asking about the children? Mm-hmm. We should have asked about the children at the peace process. There would be a section on during the peace negotiations that accounts for the return of these children. By now, we should have taken the children away from the army and asked them whether they want to return home, they want to return to school. We didn't do that. We rushed to divide the kingdoms. Mm-hmm. We rushed to do a political patch.
Power sharing.
Yes. Now look at that. The question, the Uganda one, which I took back, we separated. We asked the people, you want to go home? Can the army in the Lord Resistance Army give us the children, women who want to go home? We returned the women, children, school children who went home to northern Uganda, handed them over to the Amnesty Commission. Those who wanted to return. That's how we hammer an agreement. And this was done by Dr. Riek Machar himself. And Salva Kiir, of course, are the president. I don't know how they overlooked this. Because there are some diplomats here who think they know more than others. If you look at my document that I wrote in 2013, until you use that document, there will be no peace. Wacha niwaambie leo, what will you do? What will you do? What will you do? I don't want to be like a maraga. What to do? What? You will kill me? What will you do? If you don't use that document, let's not beat about the bush. Mm-hmm. Bring that document up, production team. It is there. Let's remind them every day, Miriam. Mm-hmm. Because you are raising a very serious question there. Have you seen? Mm-hmm. The children, it has come. Had we solved it during the plenary, would it come now?
That should have been one of the things that the government should have been seeking to solve, and to learn that right now there are children in the unified forces who are being trained to be the army, official army of the country of South Sudan. I cannot for the life of me wrap my head around this. 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds. What are we doing? Of course, this is the second time this report is being handed over to the United Nations. And I've not heard, very interesting, I've been waiting to hear how the government of South Sudan will respond to this. I've not heard President Salva Kiir come outright and say, you know what, this is a problem we have and this is how we're going to solve it. Or maybe we did not know that these children are there in the camps. But the government of South Sudan has been very numb, meaning that they have given their stamp of approval for these children to be part of the unified forces of South Sudan. Daniel, I don't know, help me understand because I can't.
And I think the issue here is both leaders are using it to secure their interests, and that's why they're keeping these child soldiers in their various camps. And of course, last month, there was some article I was researching on South Sudan, and I was very perturbed that the national army still consists children, people who are still underage, who get into the army not in their true own conscience and judgment, but they're dragged into these conflicts by the government and other top leaders who are involved in who have interest rather in the leadership of South Sudan. So it's very unfortunate, Miriam, that we still have this kind of scenario. And of course, in order to address the issue of South Sudan, then we have to go back to the root cause of such unfortunate occurrences and be able to set the record clean and get away, to do away with such kind of recruitments of young people who are not, when you give a child a gun, then that is very dangerous. This is someone who does not have a very fair judgment. They can kill anybody at any time under instruction. They don't have a fair judgment to do the right or wrong. So it's really disheartening. And I think Salva Kiir and Riek Machar should be very truthful with the people of South Sudan and be able to go back and embark on cleaning process where they'll ensure that these children are taken out of the army, disarmed, and be taken to rehabilitation centers where they'll be able to be reintegrated back to the society and be taken back to school and continue with their normal lives as it was done with those ones who were in the Lord's Resistance Army of Joseph Kony a while back.
All right, and Ben Okeke, thank you so much. And you're saying, Dr. Matanga, I will categorically tell you here that any institution or person or agency putting money in South Sudan today is only there for their own economic benefit, not even for the interest of the people of South Sudan. And he's saying no institution in the globe will accept to give South Sudan money at this current situation because there is no peace currently. And that report that was released by Sentry a couple of weeks ago that mentioned top generals in the government there, in the army and in the government of South Sudan, who are very wealthy. And when you look at their salary, which a lot of civil servants in South Sudan, civil servants go even up to 6 months without pay. But when you look at these top generals there who are very close, they have very close relations with President Salva Kiir. They're saying they cannot account for their wealth. They're not rich, they are wealthy. So that, of course, corruption. And Doctor, do you agree with our viewer here that no institution in the globe will accept to give South Sudan any kind of help right now because of the current peace situation there, of lack thereof? I don't know if the peace there is even holding as we speak.
First of all, Miriam, I have trusted my point from the beginning.
Yes.
I have told you, first, the way the peace process was conducted was faulty.
Absolutely.
I have evidence of a document that I wrote 5 days and handed over to Amina Mohammed, the then Minister of Foreign Affairs of Kenya, in the presence of several other people, General Simbeyo and others. I said, the only way to sort the problem of South Sudan is South Sudan to come under the auspices of United Nations. Mm-hmm. Full stop. How can you send a beggar to negotiate peace with a wealthy person? Mm-hmm. How? you tell me you send a beggar to negotiate peace with a wealthy person? IGAD is a beggar. IGAD depends on some payments from member states. But the warlords in South Sudan have more money than IGAD. So how are you going to enforce peace? 2, some members of IGAD are biased. Some were supporting Salva Kiir, some were supporting Riek Machar. It was only Kenya that stood out and did not welcome all of them. Kenya gave Riek Machar. I was one of the first people after the war had broken out. The first people to call Riek Machar on planet Earth is alive in Juba. He will tell you it was Dr. Matanga. I got him on the satellite phone. This man here, on the satellite phone, I told him, how do you want me to help? This thing has gone out of hand. How did it reach here? You should have told us. We should have shouted. And then I wrote a document. I said the only way we can have South Sudan peaceful is not to send IGAD, but to send a UN. Get Chisano. Even that's why you see in that document, there's Chisano, Matanga, Salva Kiir, and Riek Machar. I said, and I quoted, the late leader of South Sudan, my friend, my beloved brother. I remember he gave me $3,000 to go and pay my rent. May your soul rest in peace. He gave me $3,000 to pay rent. He said, you are still in exile. You will need this money. I was on my way to Zimbabwe. I've not forgotten. I stopped over in Nairobi. I went to Serena Hotel. He gave me $3,000. He said, I know you don't have the money. You need the money. Whatever you want, you are a great young man. That leader, Garang, wrote a best, what we call for South Sudan to have peace. You need a best arrangement. That was Garanga's way of doing things. The late. I still remember his words. I remember his words. The moment I saw this agreement not having the best arrangements, I just laughed. I wrote a document and handed up, breaking the cycle of violence. That document can be got on www.panafricanforumltd.com. It's there. It's a website. Over 10 million people have read it. Yes. Yes, there's a legacy. What people, there is. People have read them. I'm happy. I have no regrets. If you don't do that, then you come and say, piecemeal. Later, President 1, President 2, President 5, 6. We are going, every tribe will have a president or deputy.
And speaking of
that
which,
was wrong. Accountability.
yes,
384,000 people perished. Why didn't we seek accountability first? Why did we rush for structures or politics? When you are not going to rule anybody? Who are we ruling now? Perished villages. There are no people.
and children in army,
Children
training
in
as
camps.
army. Yeah, I'm disgusted. Doc. I can't even tell you.
Where do these children go?
I am annoyed. As an African, and you know me in South Sudan, I am petrified, and to know that the government of President Salva Kiir, because he is the president of South Sudan right now, so we must speak to his office and tell him this is not right, and he should be accountable. He should ensure that things like this do not happen. When they used to happen during when South Sudan wanted to break from Sudan, those days there was no proper structures. Right now you would think that there's a semblance of governance there. President Salva Kiir is the president of South Sudan, so he must and he will be held accountable over these things that are happening. How do you have children as young as 15 years, 16 years, 17 years? What are you doing with a 15-year-old in an army camp, training them to be part of a military of a country? Anyway, so yes.
Miriam, finally.
Yes, on that point.
I want to answer this viewer because the program looks hot. It's hot. I want to answer the viewer. We need to rescue South Sudan. How do we rescue South Sudan? It's like a man whom you have lent money and is going to drown in the river Nile. You don't let him to go because he will not be paid. You have to give him some money, hold him out of water, put him on the banks of River Nile, and tell him, now I want my money. After 7 months, I give you this money for transport and for more goods in the shop. You know, that is how banking is done. Now we have banked a lot of money. We have put a lot of resources in peace talks. And for AU to have meaningful peace talks, stop bringing South African envoy. Anybody in South Africa.
The Vice President, Mr. Mabuza. But the peace negotiations he led became successful. No.
This came for oil contracts. Where? Atenere, you just leave these things.
Yes.
And let's bring a neutral person.
And who will that be?
Chisano. Chisano is a soldier. Chisano will finish this problem. Wachana na East South Africa with these civilians here. They want to finish this problem here. And I'm being frank. Mutadu.
Daniel Mutadu, can you respond to that?
Yes, I believe Dr. Matsanga has a point there. You know, South Sudan to many African countries is like a small brother, and to the African Union, that is the last one of these group of countries, and it should be treated as such. And of course, when it has a crisis, then we should look at the situation on the ground, and from that perspective, be able to come out with measures that can be able to solve the stalemate there. And of course, Dr. Matsanga is just giving quite appropriate a stretch that should be followed by these experts who are trying to resolve the stalemate there. And I think it's workable. Let it be left to the right kind of individuals who do not have interest in South Sudan, neither individuals who cannot be intimidated or maybe bought over by those who have interest in the leadership wrangles in South Sudan. So that is the way to go, because this will ensure that when we get to the negotiation table, then we have no vested personal interest, but we all look at the bigger picture of bringing unity and long-lasting peace to the people of South Sudan. That is the only way forward, Miriam.
Thank you so much. And yes.
And Miriam, to add on what Wesonga said.
Yes.
Look at the number of people who have been killed so far.
I see our friend Emmanuel Malual is here. Thank you so much for that information. He's saying
300 people
yes, have been killed in ongoing. And this is recently.
Yes, it shows that the peace process
is not working. It's not. It's
but
not.
You blame Dr. Matsanga. I'm here. So what? You blame me. I'm not the one fighting. But I want to tell the people who are pretending to be doing something. Bring the UN. Let me now cool down and make this statement. A UN envoy equipped, supported, supplied logistically by the United Nations Security Council will enforce, one, the peace agreement. Any violator goes to Arusha. Follow the lips, it will work. Two, the UN will come in with UNICEF to remove the children, take them to educational schools, institutions, set up agencies that can help. Three, the UN will mobilize funding which the Sudanese government cannot mobilize now, because everybody fears to give Sudan money. That will solve what the reader here or our viewer.
Our viewer, Mr. Ben, there said. But also, Martin Ariel Joke is bringing in a very interesting point here, Doctor. Hold our horses. Apparently, he's saying we have money in South Sudan more than East Africa community have. Politicians are allowed to embezzle money to foreign countries. Others are turning national projects into their own pockets. But thanks to your solidarity, if AU is serious enough, let them bring back our money from Swiss Bank, United States Bank, Australian banks, and from neighboring countries of Uganda, Kenya, and Ethiopia. So one of our viewers there from South Sudan is saying South Sudan actually has money, but it is the poor leadership there that allows for embezzlement of these public funds. And even President Salva Kiir last year said, indeed, because according to the World Bank, South Sudan had made billions of money from their oil 2 years ago, and President Salva Kiir came out and said and regretted that he has been channeling the money towards his fight between him and Riek Machar then, and that is where a lot of money that was meant to go to help the people of South Sudan went. So he said now he knows and he'll try to do better, but I've not seen how President Salva Kiir is doing better. So according to our viewer, Doctor, South Sudan is actually not that poor. It has money, more than the East African community.
Who say it's not? It's true. South Sudan is not a poor country. Thanks to God. But the money has been looted. So are we going to sit here and cry? That's why I told you 3 things are working on South Sudan. There is a feeling internationally, one, that we take them to hybrid Swabino. That's what George Clooney and the Pedicast are looking for. I believe me or not, that group will win, because that group is tied to IMF, it is tied to World Bank, it is tied to the donor. You see that point? All what they are saying, anyway, you see, we can give the money, but first let's get the criminals. Let's get accountability. 384,000 people just went down in River Nile and disappeared, eaten by fish or whales, killed by people, and the people have come back to share power. No, let's begin with accountability. If there is any form of deterrent to deter the people of South Sudan from ever touching a gun, ever to go to fight, is accountability. The moment you raise accountability issue, and put them on a tribunal that if you put a gun, we take you there. You will see peace in that country.
So consequence should be introduced, because right now it's a free fall.
It's a free fall. Well done in good English. Free fall. Imeangukia. Kila mtu anaanguka. Everybody is falling on South Sudan. Free fall. Because even what they did in the past has been forgotten.
They've not been held accountable. Yes. Yes.
They want to start again. That's why they are killing more. 300.
Go ahead, Daniel.
I think that is the direction that we should take, so that leaders do not maximize on causing chaos in South Sudan, so that they are able to either maintain status quo or maybe further their interest on the other side. So if people will be aware that whenever they instigate atrocities against their own people, whenever they incite people to take arms, then at the end of the day, justice is going to catch up with them. Perhaps now we're going to have some restraint before they come up with decisions that will plunge the country into more chaos. And I think individual responsibility is a way to go forward in South Sudan. But when these leaders know that whenever they do these actions and bring chaos among the people, they'll be brought before the courts and be charged, then we shall have a very, very sober leadership in South Sudan, devoid of personal interest and ruthless way of wanting to further someone's interests. I think I concur with you and Dr. Matsanga in totality. That is what we need in South Sudan at the moment.
Thank you so much. And speaking about individual responsibility, President Salva Kiir, as the Commander-in-Chief, I believe, of the armed forces, there are different ones, or militias, or whatever it is, but he is the Commander-in-Chief of the armed forces there in South Sudan. He should explain to the world what children are doing in training centers there of the unified forces. He should tell us, as the Commander-in-Chief of the armed forces there in South Sudan. He cannot escape that responsibility.
Why did they go there in the first place?
Who took them there?
No, why did they go there in the first place? They went there because there is no accountability.
Absolutely.
If we had accountability, the children should have been assembled in some other place. How do you continue to assemble the children in the centers where there are old men who could actually influence them to steal guns and go? Separate the children to another camp. Ask those who want to go back to school. Ask those. But where do these children go?
Take them to counseling. Yes.
Wait, their mothers and the fathers have been killed. Have you seen the problem? Accountability. Medium, have you seen where do these children go? The mothers and the children were wiped out.
Yeah.
The mothers, fathers, children, uncles, woo, finished by marauding armies. Nobody has brought them to accountability.
All right, and Piti,
the children go.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Yes, and yes, I think the leadership of South Sudan has perfected the skill of this trade, and they know that in every mayhem, in every political crisis, there is always an opportunity to embezzle funds and steal away the resources. And I think this has been the long-lasting impediment to peace in South Sudan. You know, they believe that whenever they keep people fighting amongst themselves, there's no one who will be put to account for the resources that are being looted and public money that is being taken out of the country to be invested in other parts of the world. And perhaps that is the reason why they have been furthering this agenda of having an emotional impediment to peace, where these communities are incited against each other. They are taught to distrust each other's intentions. And that has, I believe that is what is keeping peace to be elusive within the country of South Sudan. So one thing people of South Sudan have to realize that with whatever agenda these leaders are furthering, it is for the benefit of their own selfish interest, because they believe when South Sudanese are fighting, then a little attention, if it is there any, will be given to accountability in terms of resources that are being harnessed from the country itself.
Yes, Daniel, and sorry to cut you there. And just to add on what you're saying there's a report that was presented to the United Nations Security Council last year that stated quite well that the leadership of South Sudan is actually very comfortable with the way things are in South Sudan because they get to benefit. They get to benefit from the chaos, so they would rather just maintain the status quo. And when you look at the way they have been moving in quite very less speed. They've been very, very relaxed in terms of even implementing this peace process because they'd rather have things the way they are. When there's chaos like that, you cannot bring in accountability because there's no structures to that. And speaking of which, the United States ambassador to South Sudan has called on parties to revitalize peace agreement to speed up the reconstitution of the national parliament. According to the 2018 peace deal, the national legislature shall consist of transitional National Legislative Assembly and the Council of State. It stipulates that the parliament shall be expanded from 400 to 550 members, and up there we see how those members of parliament will be divided. Doctor, a country like South Sudan, they're saying 400 members of parliament is not enough. Now they need to expand that to 550 members of parliament. Help me understand the obsession with numbers when it comes to South Sudan. If they're not fighting about the number of states, if they're not fighting about, now they have like the most ridiculous numbers when it comes to the vice presidents and now this bloated assembly. They can't even afford to pay them. Let's just start from there. So I want to understand the obsession of South Sudan with numbers when it comes to leadership.
You see, some of the diplomats are mentally wrong. Like that one of United States in Sudan. Mm-hmm. You will bring the members of parliament. Where are you going to get the money to pay them? You increase the 100. If we can't even contain the assembly points, why do you increase membership to pay who? Where will you get the money to pay them? Destabilize this pumping money. You cannot increase the membership to 500. Where is the money going to come from? First of all, then come to parliament to do what?
550 members from 400. Yes.
Okay, they come to parliament to do what? To do what?
Pass legislation. I don't know which one.
The soldiers are running away from the assembly point, going back to their rural areas.
With guns. Please add that.
Yes, their own militias. Why don't we stop and give money to the government in order those people who are looking after the camps to look after the camps? Then stop that, then think of this. Why are we doing things upside down? Yet people are sleeping out of the camps. Yet people, ethnic tension is coming. Why? Because someone wants to take someone, somewhere, some people, to the tribunal. You don't see this? We can dance around, dance. There is a tribunal hidden somewhere. I'm telling you. And they are not saying the truth. That the United States ambassador is not telling you the truth. He's a liar. He knows that George Clooney gave him a report before he departed from Juba. He knows. Because George Clooney works for CIA. The Pentagon with George Soros. No, wait. These are the men who have spoiled this world. They come to your country, write very beautiful English. Then they go back to the United States to eat the money and pay their mortgages after they have smeared you with all the ink. Why has the United States of America failed to recognize, to gazette Al-Shabaab? Are they eating with them? Hey, Kenyans watch. Where does Al-Shabaab get this uniform? New, brand new, which our army has not got. Hey, me, my ears are gone. I tell the truth, what will you do? Will you reverse my ears? Nothing. Petty.
But Doctor, just to add on the point here by the U.S. ambassador to South Sudan, who called on the parties to revitalize peace agreement to speed up the reconstitution of the national parliament, there was a problem, I think, about 2 months ago when the start of corona, when South Sudan recorded its first case of corona there, and they were calling upon the Minister of Defense, and that is the wife to the first Vice President, Madam Angelina Tenyi, to go and answer to the committee on that. On security, and she was the person who was supposed to be answerable as the Minister of Defense. And her answer was, I cannot appear in front of that committee because Parliament, as it is now, is illegally constituted. So there are some things that cannot happen because the way Parliament is right now, has not been reconstituted as per the agreement of the peace deal. So perhaps the U.S. ambassador has a point here, and he's saying as much as Parliament has not been constituted, there are some things that cannot happen. There's some things that cannot move forward because they are required to be tabled in Parliament. But of course, there will be the COVID-19 and the threat that might be impossible right now.
What about the mediator? Mm-hmm. Why didn't the mediator oversee?
Mr.
You would have seen this.
Yes.
Why didn't the mediator see these difficulties? That's why I told you the mediator is foolish. That South African Vice President, foolish. He didn't know anything. Me, I tell it as it is. What will he do? What? What to do?
What to do, Daniel?
What to do? What? That South Africans, why are they here? If you can ask South Africa, why are they in Central African Republic? What interest do they have in Central African Republic? What? You tell me, South African troops in Central African Republic, what are they doing there?
Yeah.
Whom are they helping?
So this bloated parliament, 550 members there, and they can't even pay the African Union fee.
Have you seen the parliament of Juba? It's too small.
And now they want to add more people.
Yes. And Miriam, I think it's an ominous precedence being set there. It's a very, very wrong path being taken by Africa's youngest democracy. And, in future, leaders will have a tendency of creating chaos, because if they create more chaos, then more positions will be created for them. That will be the notion out there, that we can be able to create chaos so that at the end of the day, we are invited on the negotiation tables and some positions created for us so that we also feel that we are part of government. But that is not really the way to follow in solving the crisis in South Sudan. We can solve the crisis in South Sudan with a lower number of legislators, but we have to improve on the strategy being used, the policies and the agenda that we are employing in resolving the stalemate in South Sudan. So I think in its design, whichever way you chop it, Miriam, it's wrong, and it comes at a cost of the taxpayers' money of the people of South Sudan. And it shouldn't have been encouraged in any way, because it's as they fragment these positions more, the more they also break the unity of the people of South Sudan. Because every leader of these 500 plus leaders coming on the table, everyone will be coming on the table with their own diverse views, and it will be very difficult to bring harmony and be able to speak in a single voice. And that's why in many negotiations, peace deals, you'll have that the number of people who are engaging will be reduced to a significant number, so that we don't have people with divergent interests and all that. So I think in its design, it's bound to fail, and it will not bear so much fruits in terms of bringing peace.
Thank you. So this morning, I was reading an article from one of the media outlets there in South Sudan, and it said, the headline there, that with Kenya's position at the United Nations Security Council non-permanent membership now, Kenya will help in pushing for a peaceful South Sudan. Doctor, with Kenya's position there at the United Nations Security Council, has salvation finally arrived in South Sudan?
First of all, the basis of United Nations Security Council slot for Sub-Saharan Africa boosts the chances of finding an everlasting peace for the people of South Sudan. President Uhuru Kenyatta stands a chance of delivering South Sudan from the quagmires of war, from the threat of war, to peace in the next 2 years. The agenda that I've just talked about here definitely will be picked by Kenya somehow. You need to change the modus operandi. You need to change the operations. We need to remove IGAD. IGAD can supplement. Some members of IGAD are biased. Some of them support Salva Kiir. Some of them support Riek Machar. Believe me or not, if we make this problem a regional, it sticks with regional solution, it will take us another 10 years before permanent peace settles in South Sudan. Let's make it an international threat to peace. That South Sudan can be a threat to peace, to Kenya, to Uganda, Central African Republic, to Congo, to Ethiopia, to Sudan. Already, if you look at the region, Sudan is about to go, Ethiopia is about to go to war to start with Sudan. Sudan is about to go to war. Ethiopia is about to go to war with Egypt. You know, there are so many things. Egypt is attacking Libya. Look at the whole problem. This is what Mazanga told you. I told you that the Mediterranean Sea will be full of dead bodies. I'm proud. I'm proud. I'm proud. I'm not a prophet from Elisha. But I warned you because I've studied the subject. I studied the subject. I saw what is happening long time ago. And I warned the people. You remember? The paper is there. Museveni pulled out that letter. I told you. It's in the letter on the record. Well documented by this man. By Shakespeare in English. It's there. I warned you. I said Mediterranean Sea will be full of dead bodies. Egypt wants to move troops into Libya, the western part of Libya. By tomorrow, it will be chaos because of double standard of AU, because the same AU placed double standard in Sudan. It is asking Sudan, a bankrupt state, to pay them 9 million. Will they kill the people to get my 9 million? Yeah. Yeah.
9 million from AU and $24 million from the East Africa community. South Sudan is
why don't we forfeit?
For East Africa community, we can forfeit, I believe. Even
we
for
can
AU.
Forfeit. We can forfeit and they go, as long as they bring it, we donate it back.
Because excluding South Sudan right now in these very important regional and continental blocks is very dangerous for the peace process of South Sudan, Dr. Daniel.
Yes, of course, South Sudan has been the bone of contention in the region, and most of other member states countries have been on South Sudan. And of course, if you are the topic of discussion in matters of crisis and regional security, then you have to be part and parcel of any discussion in that regard. So sidelining South Sudan will be quite disastrous, because we cannot discuss about peace in South Sudan without having South Sudan on the table to really give account of whatever they are happening. And of course, you understand that peace in South Sudan starts first of all with the will of the leadership there to be able to be very, very genuine in their aim to foster peace amongst their people. And of course, for other African countries, is just to offer a brotherly support. And in that way, we really need them to be part and parcel of any organization that brings about that rather aims to bring peace in its boundaries.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Go ahead.
There is a point that I want to add on here. For now and for the future and for our viewers, I want them to take one point. Forget, and for President Uhuru Kenyatta, please, forget this thing of that IGAD is doing it. There's no IGAD. IGAD is there by paperwork. But IGAD does not have the money to support the camps, the demilitarization, the DDR of the troops that are in assembly points. We need the money. We needed to do a donor conference for South Sudan. Some people are saying no country in the world can give South Sudan money. Why do you give to Afghanistan? Why do you give to Somalia? Then Somalia, Faramijo uses it with Al-Shabaab to kill Kenya. Give South Sudan money. They need it. We need to use that money specifically to hold the peace process. Bring in UN, let the UN take over. 2, turn the peacekeepers in South Sudan, UNIMIS, into peace shooters.
From peacekeeping to murder.
Yes.
How is that possible?
It is possible.
Okay.
Let Kenya take a motion back to the Security Council to reverse the role of UNIMIS into a peace shooting organization. Peace enforcement, not observers. If they see one territory crossing this way, increase more troops, increase more UN troops. We have done it elsewhere. Jermaine, why are we leaving black Africans dying? Because we're Africans. We have done it in Congo. Why are we not doing it in Sudan? Change them, change them, the terms of reference of UNIMIS to a shooting brigade.
So they should change the mission. Yeah.
Yes. When you cross the line, war. Shoot. Some people will have discipline.
Because every country, when the United Nations mission goes there, they have a specific agenda. For South Sudan is to just to bring peace and ensure
because
that the warring parties.
People are leaving camps, going back to start another thing.
Militias.
UN, the UNIMIS that is there, only gives you helicopter, this, that, keep food here, help here. No, turn it into a peace enforcement agency.
And Ogebe here has a problem with that, Doctor, and he's saying we will not allow United Nations to take over South Sudan. That's a big no.
That's your problem. You have failed.
Yes, and I think William.
This one here, who is this?
Okay, Omot, thank you for watching. He's saying the United Nations.
You have failed to rule yourself. Daniel,
Yes.
We have failed to rule yourself. That you say we don't want that. Who are you? You don't have anything. You have eaten all the money from oil. What do you have? What do you have? You have squandered all the money. Time has come for us to speak tough on South Sudan. They are my brothers. Dr. Yakamacha is my brother. Is my mentor. Angelina is my friend. Salva Kiir is my friend. When Dr. Yakamacha was locked up in South African house under arrest, it is me who put a phone through. I argued with Juma, with Zuma. Zuma knows me. Zuma does not need to hear the name Matanga and he doesn't know me. He knows me. Now, and I said, I gave Dr. Yakamacha the first interview. It is here. We have the record. Production team can even play it if you want, if we had the time. It is here where he told me that he's under house arrest. And I shouted to the world, is it not working now? Is it not working now? I have a stake
in South Sudan.
Yes.
So a couple of weeks ago, Daniel, just before you come in.
If South Sudan is destabilized, my country, where will it remain?
It will affect the whole region. It has been affecting the whole region. So that's why the peace in South Sudan and in Somalia, it's very important for the sake of stability in this part of Africa. So now, a couple of weeks ago, Assistant Minister, I can't remember in one of the ministries, I think was it Security, resigned, citing the lack of willingness to the leadership of implementing the peace process, Doctor. This has been a recurring topic when it comes to the implementation of the peace process. President Salva Kiir, Riek Machar, and the stakeholders, they're not really willing to implement this peace process. They were forced into signing the peace deal. So apparently now they expect the world to keep putting pressure on them every step of the way. At what point should the world just decide, you know what, you should handle this by yourselves? Are they willing?
The world will not give up.
The world will not give up, okay.
Never.
And should not give up, okay.
Neither Matanga will give up.
But the leadership is not willing. So what should we do to find a real solution in South Sudan?
We have been giving the solution for the last 1 hour and 20 minutes.
Yes. But the problem is the implementers, the leadership, the top leadership, they've not shown willingness, Doctor, to implement.
We take them forcefully.
Ogembe has said no, that will not work.
Miriam, I think this rhetoric of sovereignty has been for so long been the whipping boy of the leadership of South Sudan, trying to tell the South Sudanese nationals that we are a sovereign country and therefore an outsider intervention cannot be allowed. I think that is akin to telling the people of South Sudan that although we are having a crisis here, being fueled by the leaders, but you have nowhere to run to. You have to sit here and kill each other and create all the state of anarchy without any kind of help from the outside. I think it's a very bad notion. South Sudan needs help not only from the African continent, but across the globe. And that is why I concur strongly with Dr. Matsanga that the UN has to come in and be able to assist South Sudan to bring in stability. Look at other sectors. When you look at even the economies of the world, whenever a country is facing financial crisis and the economy is dropping down, the value of their currencies are dropping. That's why you have bodies like IMF that always come on board to assist them come back to stability. The same thing happens when countries are in a crisis. There's no abomination, there's no bad will when you call in a higher body that can be able to oversee this peace process that will ensure that stability is restored in the country. So I think it is time South Sudanese leadership put aside their ego and took a very sober step of extending an invitation to other stakeholders to come on board to try and just search the way forward in terms of achieving a long-lasting peace for its people.
All right. So earlier this month, the United Nations mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, also noted the upsurge in acts of violence. They blamed most of the violence on inter-communal clashes. In other words, ethnicity. How can we cure this problem? We see it here, but in South Sudan, it's really, really dire.
But Miriam, also you have to realize that this ethnicity that the government of South Sudan is complaining about, they are the same people who plant the seeds of ethnicity among us.
Actually, they're not complaining. This is the United Nations report, mission there in South Sudan that came out with this report. So I think it's serving them very well because they have their own village militias based on their ethnical background. So ethnicity is a cancer that is eating now. It's finishing South Sudan, and also you've seen it here. Although in Kenya, you try to find yes. Yes.
Okay, let's do this.
Yes.
These guys from South Sudan are saying no to any external, which your song is bringing, any external which are brought. But why have we stabilized? You know, if we don't run in quickly to use the method we used on Somalia by creating AMISOM to rule South Sudan, to stabilize, like AMISOM is stabilizing in Somalia.
So what will be their role in ensuring a stable South Sudan? What will they do?
They will come and show that the insecurity that no warring parties kill each other. We don't have that force now. Where is it?
A buffer. So we need a buffer.
Not even a buffer. Where is it? AMISOM is helping Mr. Faramajo to eat more money. Okay, fine. But there is a government in Somalia that planes can come and leave and go and come. Okay? So let's create an AMISOM type of model in South Sudan. We have created it already in Abyei Peninsula, where there are multinational other agencies guarding the Abyei Peninsula.
And there has been fights there and clashes there too.
Yeah, even if they are fighting, but there are people stabilizing.
And
so
also,
why don't we create a South Sudan AMISOM type?
Oh, AMISOM, not now the UNMISS from the United Nations.
No, you can bring whatever you want.
Yes.
Name the donkey, name the monkey,
Yes.
X, Y, name it, name dog.
So we changed the mandate. We changed the mandate, that's what you're saying.
First, if you want, you can change the mandate. Increase troops of UN. If the Africans fear Wazungu, then let's bring AMISOM, where African forces can bring in their troops, like Somalia. We have AMISOM, Ethiopia, Djibouti, Burundi, Uganda, and Kenya. There are some cars that travel successfully to Kismayo every day. Am I wrong? Their plane is flying into Mogadishu and the flights going out. Turkish Airlines, Qatar, are they not going out? Hello, I'm asking. They are coming to Nairobi. before
Yes.
COVID came into existence.
But doctor, there has been right now. Even the UNIMIS now is investigating an incident because there is a place where they're stationed, and under their watch, a lot of people, and there's been a lot of clashes there, and they are present in that area in Abyei, and that is something that now they're investigating. In fact, I was reading another news item earlier before I came here, so that is something that is under investigation right now. Where they are stationed, a lot of atrocities are happening. People are dying. There's a lot of insecurity. So South Sudanese are wondering, why do we need these people, and why should we be added more soldiers from outside if they're not even...
Because the soldiers from outside will be neutral. Someone is saying that we have more soldiers. You have more soldiers, but more soldiers they pay allegiance to react.
They've taken over militant outfit. They're being trained now to be unified.
They're not soldiers.
And
so we need an outside force. Ilya, please listen to me.
Yes.
We need a stabilizing force in South Sudan. And some of us will suggest in black and white to the Security Council that South Sudan needs a stabilizing force. Now that Kenya is there, believe me or not, our documents will reach. They will reach. Hakuna kumchezo, the documents will reach. We need a stabilizing force. UN can afford to pay Kulune to come and sit and drink our tea and enjoy our sunshine. Write a report. Why can't the UN pay people who can stabilize
South Sudan?
South Sudan. That's my comment. And I want to do a takeaway.
All right.
We might do if you want to continue with.
No, we will do the diaspora perhaps at 3. At 2, 3. Okay. We will agree on that, but just do your takeaway, Doctor.
My take.
Yes.
Since the war broke out in South Sudan in 2013, a lot of experiments or peace process have been brought in place. The first experiment collapsed with 2 armies going at each other. The peace process died. The second peace process came. We managed to get what we have got right now. There is a peace process, a semblance of peace holding. How long it will hold, we just don't know. But it's upon the people of South Sudan and international community to help the people of Sudan to pump in resources needed to sustain the peace process, which is so fragile that it could actually break. And once it breaks, it makes matters worse for the region. South Sudan remains a sick child of Africa. A sick child in the sense that senseless killings have taken place. Over 380,000 people are not traceable. Accountability has been overshadowed by political machinations. How long can this take on? How long can this stay? How long can this happen? And how shall we control it? How do we bring it to a conclusion? A peaceful, stable South Sudan. My proposals range from funding the government to sustain the projects of peace process that we agreed, changing the peace model by bringing the UN special envoy in the region, fully equipped, logistically equipped, supplied, mandated to keep law and order and have sustained the peace process, the ceasefires that are there. If that can be done, South Sudan will be stable. If that stability does not come, then it is up to the world to decide another method beyond what they have done so far. And that method is accountability through the courts that will deter any further occurrences of a war. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Your take?
Yes, I think now speaking after Dr. Matsanga has spoken, he has wrapped it up in-depthly and done it perfectly. Yes. So mine, I think I'll just concur with him. I think it is high time the government of South Sudan really change the equation, the peacemaking process, because if you keep doing things the same way, cannot expect to achieve different results. So it's high time they changed the way they are working on the peace process. And also the outside world needs to come on board and be able to aid these Africa's youngest democracy in their efforts to achieve long-lasting peace. And that is why we call on the aid from the European countries, the other African countries, to ensure that the people of South Sudan ultimately end up in a situation where they will be able to enjoy peace and prosperity in the days to come. I think that is what I have to add on it.
All right, thank you there. And even as, all that is put in place, and I see, South Sudanese are here really giving their opinion and saying, a lot of them are like, no, we don't want the United Nations, there. We don't want any more of their presence there. And they're saying a lot of them are there just to benefit people from outside and not to benefit the people of South Sudan there. But even as we speak right now, earlier on, we've brought a lot of points here, and one of the things that I would like President Salva Kiir to address right now, he is the president of South Sudan. President Salva Kiir, we don't want children in the unified army of South Sudan. There have been credible reports that show that children are part of the army that is training as a part of the unified forces. We don't need children in those army camps. So as the head of state, as the commander-in-chief, this report has come out twice or three times and you've not even responded to it. Can you do something about it? Can you remove these children from this? Can you stop allowing a situation where these children's innocence already has been taken? This children's future already has been messed up. You cannot continue to do this. You cannot continue to allow this to happen. It happened before because of the way the country was while South Sudan was fighting to be independent. This should not be happening today. So President Salva Kiir, as the head of state of South Sudan, this ball will land it right down to your footsteps because you are responsible for the peace and security of South Sudan and the people of South Sudan. And so you must take the responsibility and ensure, even as the country tries to form the unified forces, we don't want to hear 15-year-olds in the army camps. We don't hear 16-year-olds, 17, underage. Children should not be part of the unified forces. So that is wrong. And you must right this wrong. The other thing is AU, I think, as we said here, South Sudan cannot pay $9 million US. Where is it going to find money? Of course, we've seen a lot of South Sudanese come here and say, the country is rich, and it is because of the embezzlement that happens with the senior officials there in South Sudan that has rendered this country poor. But actually South Sudan has money, and it has, because even the World Bank, according to their own estimation, South Sudan makes a lot of money even from its own oil and other resources. But still, at this point, I think excluding South Sudan and sanctioning South Sudan and removing it from being an active member there of the AU is not right. So perhaps we need to forgive South Sudan this $9 million. And also East African community, $24 million you're expecting from South Sudan. I don't know when you think this is going to come. It's not going to happen. Not now, perhaps later on in the future. So perhaps in the spirit of supporting South Sudan, we might want to think about, just writing off some of these debts owed by South Sudan, and then moving forward, maybe you start charging them from this year. I don't know. But just reduce that, because excluding South Sudan at this point, it's very dangerous for the fragile process in that country. And that reminds me, remember earlier this year when the U.S. met with Israel to try to find a lasting solution between Israel and Palestine, and they came out with these solutions, and yet Palestine was not involved, was not on the table when they were talking about Palestine. So, and they purported to come out with some resolutions and some solutions, and yet they excluded the presence of Palestine in that table. And so that peace deal or whatever deal between the US and Israel is just rubbish, because the person that you were supposed to find a solution with is not on the table. So we need South Sudan to be part of the process of finding a lasting peace in its own country. And so we need it in these bodies. We need it at the AU. We need it at the East African community. We need it because when you cannot find a solution without the involvement, active involvement of South Sudan's leadership there and key players there in the country. And also something else, that bloated parliament, 550 members of parliament. I know it was part of the revitalized peace agreement. I don't know. You have 5 vice presidents. That has not improved the solution, the peace process in that country. In fact, it has just brought a lot of chaos. So I can't understand the obsession with South Sudan and the numbers when it comes to the leadership in that country, that they can't even afford to pay, like a bloated, parliament that the government is already struggling to pay civil servants. And now, of course, that will be increased there. So this becomes a burden now to the government of South Sudan. So these are things that for that peace process to be realized, we have to keep supporting South Sudan, but also, as Dr. mentioned there earlier, we must hold them accountable. President Salva Kiir, as the head of state of South Sudan, Mr. Riek Machar, and other stakeholders. The people of South Sudan will hold you accountable, and of course, you will go to the books of history there. As a lot of violence has continued to happen under your watch. A lot of corruption has continued under your watch, and you do nothing. You need to correct these things for the future of South Sudan and for the people of South Sudan who have suffered, and we need to put a stop to this madness. Doctor, are you still there? And then we finish. I know you've done your take. All right. I think Dr. Matanga has... Yes. So the last take.
That is it, I think.
Yes.
We have done our best. We have analyzed the problems of South Sudan. We believe that South Sudan needs help. Let the people give it to them. They need to be part and parcel of the international community. It is up to the leaders to look at the common suffering of the people that they lead. The troubles of COVID-19 have increased the suffering of the people of the world. Also, the suffering of the people of South Sudan. Most of them, where hospitals are 1,000 miles away. It is very, very, very dangerous situation that this has come on us. At the same time, the peace seems to be shaky. But with God Almighty, the journey will open. The world will be the same. South Sudan one day will rise from the ashes and shine again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. David Matanga there, and thank you so much, Daniel Wasonga. My name is Miriam Ogutu. We'll see you later on, and thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye for now.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.